Hi there, Richard Tubb here, back with another video, and I'm excited today to be joined by a couple of members of the Pax8 UK, the EMEA team. Phylip Morgan is the Chief Channel Officer at Pax8. How are you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity of being back with you again today, Rich. This is getting a bit of a habit, isn't it?
It is getting a habit, a good one, I think, though. And we're also joined by Tom Welton, who is the Partner Solutions Engineer. How are you doing today, Tom?
Hey, good morning, Richard. Good. How are you? I'm
very good indeed. Now, for those people with a discerning ear, they're going to tell that is not a UK accent, is it, Tom? So tell us where you're from, but you are in the UK now, right?
I am. So we are based out of Bristol here locally, but very much not native to Bristol, as my accent might betray me there for a little bit. So yeah, you just need to follow the yellow brick road, as it were, to get all the way back to where I need to get going. Most definitely, yeah.
Thank you for joining us all the way across from Kansas, all the way to the UK. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Pax8, I have rarely heard so much excitement about a distributor, for want of a better word, hitting UK shores. For the last couple of years, UK European-based MSPs have been saying to Pax8, when are you going to come to our shores? And there's a really good reason why there's been so much excitement about Pax8 coming to the UK, because they bring a lot of cutting-edge technology with them. Phil, for anybody who's not familiar with Pax8, how would you describe what you and the company do?
Yeah, so frankly, Pax8 is awesome. And what I mean when it's awesome is we are two awesome things in one. We are an awesome portal that allows people to self-serve and specifically allows MSPs, xSPs, TSPs, whatever you're calling yourself these days. It allows an MSP to provision, buy, bill, manage, and analyze all of their ecosystem for their business. So that's the platform. And the other awesomeness is people like Tom and other wingmates all across the world that deliver great support and enablement for our partners. So not only do we do the break fix side of things, if a license is not working, but we also do the enablement piece in helping MSPs sell better, give better service, better education, everything through the platform that we do.
Now, I referred to Pax8 as a distributor, Phil. That's probably not doing you justice, but that's the label that I'm going to put on for perhaps people from the traditional channel industry to just become familiar with who Pax8 are. You're much more than that, though, aren't you? So talk to us a little bit about what the relationship with MSPs looks like.
Yeah, so we use the phrase born in the shed or born in the cloud. And it's literally like we talk about culture of being a digital native or a digital immigrant, right? You know, those of us that have been brought up with a phone and had it kind of hardwired, so people like my daughter, etc., they've got a natural way to use it. Me, I've got a kind of on fingers, thumbs, like it's just painful to watch me send a text message. So in the same way, the cultures are different, we believe, in distribution. So that's why lots of people might call us a distributor, but Pax8 is actually the world's favorite cloud marketplace for technology providers. So what we do is we provide a marketplace for you and a portal for you, very much like Amazon provide a marketplace, right, for every hardware piece of product that you would buy. We do this for B2B cloud services to provide MSPs an opportunity to be able to buy, provision, manage, analyze all of what they're using in their business on a day-to-day basis.
Makes sense. Now, Tom, I've heard so many people speak so highly about your portal that Phil just referred to there. I'm a big techie geek. I love getting my hands on new technology. Would you share your screen and give us a little demo of what the portal looks like for anybody like myself who's not seen it before?
Yeah, absolutely. We can dive right in, give you a little platform tour there through it. And yeah, any questions, things like that coming up, feel free to throw those in there and we can take any pivots we need to. So
sure.
Let me get shared out here on my end.
So I've got to jump straight in here, Tom. This is not what I was expecting from the home screen. So I can see our good friend Gary Picker of True Methods there. I can see ShareWeb. I can see all these different news pieces. So this is the home of the portal, right?
This is one potential home of the portal, but yes,
okay,
absolutely. So yeah, this is what's known as the executive dashboard. So this is a landing page. And so yeah, absolutely. Every user coming into here, multiple users, same company kind of thing, everybody's going to have a different look. Everybody has something, important that they'd like to check in on a daily basis. Maybe that's some information here from the channel, check a couple of websites inside of here. And it's all done through what we call the widgets. And so these widgets are these drag and drop little frames. We can reposition these, make these kind of larger and smaller at will. But we don't just have to display static text and things like that as well. So we do have a couple of other ones here that I can showcase on a separate platform. There's our sales layout, for example. And so if you're really into the numbers, you're into checking out the charts and things like that, you can see we've got our margin percentages, recurring growth and attrition and things like that. Total spend, total Microsoft spend. And as you're tracking these things, you can very much, customize this. That's what, everybody has a favorite homepage. There's the dedicated couple of sites you'd like to check into. And we've tried to add as many of those useful features here to the platform as we could. And just to give you an overview here, there are plenty of these widgets out there. We're always adding new ones all the time. So come in here, hey, that looks great. Let me, take a look at our margin percentages or, inside of our company health roll-up, which we can touch on in a little bit. But yeah, very much a customizable page. And as you can see here, several different looks that you can flip through, as well as customize these and kind of keep these on board for later. So if you, do want to switch over to a more news-oriented one, keep an eye on local news and things like that as well. Yeah, platform definitely is a good fit for it.
Amazing. Phil, colour me impressed already. Now, you and I have been in this industry perhaps longer than we care to mention here. And of course, the industry, don't we? We talk about like a single pane of glass. You and I have talked about this before. Everybody's driving for this single pane of glass. That's not the reality of course, is it? Because as Tom has mentioned there, what one person wants, what you and I might want to see on a homepage is going to be completely different to what Tom wants to see or what somebody on their MSP help desk or somebody in sales wants to see. So talk us through, what this means to you and what your input has been on how this has been designed.
Yeah, so fundamentally, the single pane of glass is anathema, right, Richard? If I hear one more CEO like get on the stage and say, we provide a single pane of glass, like, dude, just don't carry on lying and communicating that. Fundamentally, we know in a modern xSP or TSP business that's running today, that there are 5 key functional roles, right? You have the sales and marketing role, you have the operations role, you have the finance role, and you have the technical role, which is like CISO, CTO, etc., that would be in there. And then you've got a 5th role, which is the CEO, the leadership pivot on the top of it. So each one of those people, or in traction terms, seats on the bus, they're going to want a different view. So the view that was shown at the beginning here under YIT, that's probably a CEO view, right? Wanted to stay up to speed with market information. The CRO, sales and marketing view, was the one that Tom showed, where we've got all the graphs on attrition and churn and the margin and everything else like that. And then we've got similar views that Tom will show later on, where we're talking about managing the Office 365 tenant from a CISO or a CIO perspective. So what we are trying to do here is not provide you a single pane of glass. What we are trying to do is provide you a view that can help you be as efficient as possible in the seat that you're sitting on in your business.
Yeah, very, very impressive. Now, Tom, you work with lots of MSPs, lots of technology providers, not just in the UK, but all over the world. How are you finding people are using this in practical terms? So perhaps if I'm somebody as a help desk engineer, what does my homepage in the portal look like compared to, as Phil said, if I was the CEO of the company?
Yeah, it's just going to be all about the content that you have. And so, yeah, CEOs of the company definitely going to be looking at larger, big picture things. Maybe a few of those financials, maybe from the larger view, maybe not really getting into the trenches of that kind of thing. Whereas that day-to-day help desk technician may have some of the vendor utilization, some of the trending Microsoft products. That may be an indicator of, hey, Microsoft just released a new SKU that's gaining a lot of ground on, say, Business Premium or something like that. So you're able to put things on your radar as you keep an eye on those widgets day after day. And yeah, as you'll see a little bit later on into the walkthrough here, we've got some great reads into that individual and multi-tenant Office 365 environment. So really getting a good look into some of the state of security inside of these tenants, as you will. And so some very, very great information for those frontline workers as well.
Let's take a quick look at the widgets. So I saw you were very kindly sort of scrolling through all the different widgets that we had there, but just talk through a few of them perhaps that stand out to you as being really interesting widgets for people to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big one's going to be that iframe, of course, the inline frame. Throw your favorite website inside of there. That's really going to land at home. So if you do have a local news station, a local, MSP thread or something like that, you keep an eye on. Definitely put it into there, and that's going to bring it home. Your Microsoft license consumption, Microsoft spend. That's always great to keep an eye on it. See, just how much you're spending with Microsoft. Really is that base level license that we're looking at. A couple of other ones here as well. Pax8 is, regularly adding vendors to our line card. So, very much that marketplace, it is expanding. We're adding more and more things based off the feedback we get, regionally speaking as well. So what's more popular out here is going to make it to the front of the line. Yeah, keep an eye on the new Pax8 vendors tab there. Let's see what else is in here. The unsynced subscriptions is a great one. Keep an eye on that as well. So a little bit later, we'll get into some of the billing. And so that's what we haven't really done a whole deep job of talking about the billing. But yeah, how, when we make these changes, when we add a license, how do we pass that information over to our PSA tool of choice? So we do support a couple of the big ones, which I'll get into. But yeah, that one absolutely is a dead giveaway. Things that you're going to be charged for as an MSP, make sure that gets passed down to the customer. Absolutely, just because that's why we're here.
Very cool. Now, Phil, you and I have been sort of brought up in this industry with the mantra managed by metrics rather than gut feeling. It looks as though if you're a metrics person, this is metric central, isn't it? So it looks as though Pax8 make just about every metric available to the MSPs, to their partners.
Listen, what gets measured gets done, Richard, right? And we all talk about magic metrics, and people like Paul Dipple and others in the industry have really helped by bringing to the fore metrics that matter in a business. And, never have a board meeting without data in it, I was told years and years ago, right? It's a dangerous thing to make decisions with no data in the room. So I do think you can get to a place of analysis paralysis sometimes with information that you're running on a spreadsheet. So what I like about what our development team have created with all of these screens that you see is that they're reflective of real-time operations and decisions that are being made in your business in real time. So none of this here has to be created. It all happens on the fly based on, we talk a lot at Pax8, Richard, we call it the holy trinity of an MSP. So the holy trinity of an MSP is three foundations of your business that need to sync up, and Tom is going to talk to you about some of that syncing at the moment to make sure that no pounds or euros are falling off the table and that you're misbilling it. But the holy trinity of an MSP is making sure that the number of users and licenses and subscriptions that are in your Office 365 tenant, if you major on Microsoft as a partner, so that your Microsoft tenant plus your billing engine is the second one. So lots of MSPs listening or watching here would be using Xero, right? Does Xero sync up with your Office 365 tenant? And then lastly, your PSA. So ConnectWise and Autotask users, they use the CRM element of it, to manage every single user. Well, is the number of users and the number of endpoints, are they synced between all three of those? And Tom can share stories where we've demonstrated this to partners, that the gap between the billing engine and the Microsoft 365 tenant has been in the tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. So, we're talking about £130,000 a year, $130,000 a year we saved a client in the US because the way that we've done all of this historically, Richard, you remember when you and I were running our MSPs back in the day? It would be printouts, and we would trying to use Excel if we were automating it, and trying to kind of have little equations to work out all the minuses and the zeros. It was really, really painful. So these dashboards sync your PSA with your tenant and your billing engine.
Incredible. Tom, show us a little bit more about that. So we've talked about integration. We've talked about the synchronization between different platforms. Show me a little bit more about how that looks in practice for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is definitely one of the kind of undersold features of our platform, just because it takes 10 to 15 minutes to set up. Our team, myself included, happy to hop on the call and help do it. But yeah, once we get in the flow of it, it really does a lot of the things in the background. You've already done that work once, and then you'll see passing over that sync, vitally important. And yeah, absolutely. So the pro rata and the prorations, game changer for those. A lot of MSPs that I talk to, dozens, if not hundreds at this point, hey, we just eat that cost for that half a month. Being able to capture that partial month revenue has been a hugely defining feature. So within that, we house a lot of our tools under our aptly named tools section here. We've got business automation. It's a little handshake there. So I do like to think about, Pax8 making that handshake to your PSA tool of choice. And I can pause here for a second just to denote the ones that we do support. So ConnectWise and Autotask, definitely some of the larger ones there as well. Kaseya, Synchro, very popular. And then even TigerPaw and Repair Shopper. And so these are the 6 that we support with a formal integration. But just know as well that we did release open APIs. So if you have an API specialist on your team, you very much can dial into a lot of this information and kind of custom build that stuff out. Is a very, very new feature that we've just recently released here. But within that, I've got a ConnectWise connection we can dive into here today just to take a peek. Even to give you a little bit of under the hood, we're quite literally just signing in with an API user, public key, private key. Quite truly takes about 5 or 10 minutes to set up. In the real world there, we've got some great guides to follow along for that. And then within that, we've got our existing connections. And so here's a ConnectWise connection I've already got in place, and a couple of features within it here. So we've got the binding and the import ConnectWise companies you see here, and then bind product, export product. And it's all about mapping. It's all about tying these entities in a one-to-one format together, so that the entity that I know as the aquarium on my side is talking to the entity that ConnectWise knows as the aquarium, that they know that they're the same company there. And as trivial as that may sound, that's not always the case, and or there's a human involved in that. So again, I'm human, Richard, you're human. We make mistakes very regularly, so as long as we can eliminate us, or as much as us from the equation as we can, we're going to be better off in capturing those financials. So yeah, just a real quick tour here at the top, binding that Pax8 demo company. You can see there Bristol Aquarium to Bristol Aquarium. So I've got those 2 entities tied together, so that when I make a change here, it's going to be, passed along to our ConnectWise entity over there. We've got the ability to import companies inside of here. So we've got a couple of different ways of doing this in the platform, but just building it out, we know that can be a little bit of a pain there, a process. So we'll be able to source as much information as we can pull. You can see here, I've got Enable Manufacturing. And within a couple of clicks here, I'm able to set up this company entirely from scratch. Set that contact for who's receiving emails and things, and import and bind. So kind of getting that 2-in-1 combo feature there. When getting these companies to talk to each other. And all of this stuff just does have to be done once. And so it's not one of those every single time I'm logging in, I'm having to do this stuff. Very much one of those measure twice, cut once, go in there, get the work done, make sure it's done right. And then when we do the syncing process, you'll see a very, very smooth flow. Scrolling down here to the bottom, there's just a handful of other ones to talk about here. It's just the products now is all we're talking about. And so these are going to be the exact same, just need to be bound in our one-to-one format. You can see there I've got my Business Basic, an EOP2, there's my Microsoft Azure even, as well as the ability to export Pax8 products. And so, maybe we bring something to our line card that doesn't exist in your system. Hey, I've been using Autotask for, 5 years, but I don't have the M365 audio conferencing SKU inside of there. We can help you build that out. We can come in here, select that term for you. It'll pre-populate MSRP right there for you. As well as give you the ability to, change and customize any of these there, but then go ahead and export that out. And I found that to be valuable for a number of PSA tool users. For those existing kind of ones, they've been in there for years as data hygiene. They just go and, kind of rip and replace the entire SKU catalog. This is a great way to get clean products through that. And then also as well, maybe you're switching PSA tools. So maybe it's the first time you're using it and you need to build out that initial catalog. This is a great way to standardize that, make sure everything looks, the same, relatively kind of back and forth on it.
And in terms, what I usually like to do in these situations, Tom, is put myself in the place of the MSP who's watching this. And I know one of the first questions that's going to come up here is, this looks awesome, does it do two-way sync or is it a one-way sync? So if we change something in Pax8, does it change in ConnectWise? If we change something in ConnectWise, does it change in Pax8? How does that look?
Right now for the billing, it is just going to be a one-way sync. So we are just going to be pushing quantity changes, recurring additions, and things like that, as we'll get into here in a bit. And so we will be pushing that information one way, but I am glad you brought that up, just because where our platform is currently stepping into the future is Pax8 Pro, that we can definitely talk a little bit more about. And that's when we're starting to pull that information in from the two-way. So if you do make an update to say a service ticket or something like that inside of a ConnectWise, we are able to pull that information, you know, and be able to pass that both ways. And so, yeah, great question to be able to do it. But yeah, right now for billing, just to throw in that one way.
Yeah, very cool. Phil, I want to bounce back to you for a minute, and forgive us for bouncing around here because, you know, we've looked primarily at the Microsoft side of things, but of course, Pax8 have got a big catalog of vendor partners that you work with and offer services to MSPs. Can you run through a few of those and what it might look like in this platform?
Yeah, so one of the challenges of an MSP is, just like we use this phrase, single pane of glass, we also it was these lies in the industry, which is, look, you can get everything that you need from one vendor or one provider. And that's just not the case, right? We see, you know, let's look at cybersecurity, for example. We've seen over the last 10, 15 years. Remember, you and I used to sell all of that big yellow brand that we used to have at one time, Richard.
We're showing our age now, Phil.
Yeah, we are. But, you know, brands come and go, right? And so how can we create an environment for an MSP to be able to move with those products and services? So tied on to a lot of the licensing for Microsoft, people want to switch on other things. There might be, you know, a whole raft of solutions from, you know, we've largely got 5 categories. So we've got productivity, where we drop things like video conferencing tools and, you know, Teams and everything of that nature. We've got obviously cybersecurity tools. We've got business continuity tools, cyber tools in terms of, you know, password protection tools, phishing, ransomware, like a whole raft of stuff. So depending on what seat the customer's employee for the MSP is sat in, you want to deploy those licenses. So let's imagine that Tom was a help desk engineer for an MSP right now in the UK. He might have a ticket which is, hey, can you set up an Office 365 E3 with LastPass and set up AV, Sentinel-1, you know, there might be a whole, and also, can you put Drop Suite for backup on the mailbox as well? What Tom from the portal here could just configure it in one simple move, just to go find, as you've seen from the CRM, find the contact and literally click it all in and activate all the licenses. And that bill, back to how Tom was talking about proration, whether it's partway through the month or whether it's at the beginning of the month, that bill, and our passion here, which is why we're awesome, Richard, our passion is to create the right bill the first time and every time. So enabling the MSP to do that is the key thing across all of the vendors in their technology stack.
Brilliant. Tom, can we have a look at this in practice? So if I'm a new customer for an MSP, you're the help desk engineer sat there and you want to get me set up on a few different platforms, what does the provisioning look like in terms of the portal?
Yeah, absolutely. So instant provisioning is definitely one of our taglines that you'll hear in real world practice, truly from, you know, click to portal.office. We're talking 2 minutes. I mean, it truly is lightning speed. I think our dev team even goes as far as spinning it up first and then sending you the confirmation email. So you can sit there and just hammer down that refresh button and it'll be there very, very quickly. And then with that, change management is also very, very easy as well. So I'll go through an initial product setup, but then, you know, coming back to that next month when I've got 5 more users, and the next month after that with 5 more users, very, very easy for, again, that frontline technician to come in, make a few clicks, and then go ahead and not only provision that license, but in that same workflow, sync across that change. And so they're also taking that billing contact. And I think, you know, outsourcing what previously was, you know, 2 folks' job or 2 different departments' jobs, you're eliminating a handoff. Again, it's us and the humans that are making mistakes. But yeah, let's go into one of my customers that I have here. So I like to pick on the Bristol Aquarium here. And with that, you're looking at a kind of a main company layout. We've got all our details and everything like that here. And then we organize a lot of the information across the top here in some tabs. So here's our subscriptions tab. And so you can see here, I've got a couple of already active subscriptions in place. Business premium there at quantity 10, a couple of mailboxes. There's our Azure. As well as our drop suite and our iron scales, maybe an air slate. So maybe, yeah, talking about some of those tools now that help us, either sign documents, manage passwords, organize things in an automated way. But yeah, perfect. Let's go ahead and maybe add a new Microsoft license to this tenant here. So we can come to our order button up here. It's going to take us into our catalog. And so, of course, there's multiple ways of doing it too, Richard, which I think is a good thing of doing it. You're going to see me go through just, the way that I just do it on a daily basis, but everybody has their own flavors. Yeah, MSPs definitely, will come to the catalog first, find that subscription, and then select the company. And so very flexible with it. So let's go ahead and maybe find a business basic here to throw onto it. So we'll sort through our catalog. You can see there we've got our business basic. We'll click into it. And Microsoft pricing with Microsoft generally pretty straightforward. Again, this is a really great feature that we have in our platform. Maybe there is tiered pricing. Maybe there is arrears-based billing and things like that. We'll do a pretty good job of breaking that down here in the proper financials. But we'll go ahead and check out our license here. So we've got our business basic. First screen here, just kind of clicking through a couple of these. Do we want monthly or annual? We'll keep it monthly. Quantity, maybe we'll do 5 of these licenses here for it. And as you can see there, as soon as I calculate, the quantities here, these just update and automatically calculate for us. Throw in some custom pricing in there if you need to. And then that effective date. And so that's what you very much talked about, the instant provisioning. And yes, absolutely, we pride ourselves on clicking submit and go. But maybe the project doesn't require that. So I know just, very recently here, May 1st was on a Saturday. Nobody likes working on Saturday. Nobody wants to report incident Saturday. You can kick out that effective date. So if I did need to, take care of a project, I know that Tuesday the 1st is going to be very busy for me. I can go ahead and set these orders to go ahead and, provision, and I can go ahead and sync those changes across. So I've already got the licenses taken care of. I've already got the billing taken care of. First of the month, it's always crazy for me. I know that I can just hit the ground running then, and take care of my normal day-to-day fires as they come across, whereas provisioning, and getting that billing sorted out won't be a part of those. So we'll just go ahead and do the instant provisioning to get these ones turned on here. And we'll add to the cart. And so they're, very much hearing us talk about Pax8 being a marketplace. This is where you're able to come and add in, additional items if you would need to. So if I did want to go ahead and provision a drop suite or an air slate or kind of multiple items alongside of this, very much could. So here we'll just go ahead and complete our checkout. And this is again going to be for just the first couple of, or just the first order itself, whereas you're going to see the change quantity is going to be a very, very quick process. We'll take a couple of customer details there, some information, make sure we have a payment on file. We'll ask about that technical contact. So who in the organization, is going to receive that confirmation email. If it's net new Microsoft, who's getting that admin on Microsoft global admin email. So very likely yourself here rather than the customer. Shared mailboxes work great for this sort of thing. Continue to the provisioning details. And so this is something I do want to talk about, kind of that ultimate question. Does Microsoft exist? Yes or no? And if yes, what is their tenant ID? And if no, what do you want their .on Microsoft domain to be? So we'll go ahead and, spin up that Microsoft account from scratch if we need to. But here you can see we have an existing one. We'll throw in our tenant IDs there. We'll take care of both of the MCAs there, so the Microsoft Customer Agreement and the Microsoft Cloud Agreement. So we'll ensure we get those signed for your customers. And we actually do something known as front-end validation. And so we're going in and making sure that this is going to go through when we click submit. And so that's what, if any of these pieces of information are wrong or out of order, it'll go ahead and not validate for us. Whereas again, going back to that adage there, measure twice, cut once. We're doing a little bit more work up front. So that we know, that when we do complete this order, it is going to go through. Step 5, complete the order, throw in a PO number if you use it. One more sets of T's and C's there with our terms and conditions, and we'll complete this order. And so, here you see the thank you for your order screen, the checkout. Behind the scenes, that API is going to work. If I were to log into portal.office.com, from the amount of lag time it would take me to get in there, MFA into a portal.office, those licenses would be there. And so very much instant provisioning, those are going to be available for me to assign immediately. But with that, let's go ahead and sync this order across over here. And so that's what, in that flow, that technician's in here is ordering licenses. Let's go ahead and sync it across. So, my technician knows that I use ConnectWise. And you can see here a couple of squares there kind of chaining together, those blue squares there kind of left to right. I wasn't clicking on anything, but I will stop here for a second, just to kind of showcase what exactly was going on there. So first thing we do is we check that connection. Hey, is ConnectWise on? Is it talking to Pax8? That looks great. And so then it's going to go into the companies again. And so that's what we've kind of done all this work before. So now our Bristol Aquarium is tied to our Bristol Aquarium. Then it'll go check the products on this phase. Is the product we call Business Basic tied to something that you called Business Basic as well? And then here's where it's going to land on typically most of the time. And so this is really the only work that a tier 1 technician may have to do. And that's just simply going to be knowing these agreements. And a lot of time, these are going to autofill anyways. And so whether this is an auto task, this would be called a contract. In Synchro, these are your recurring invoices. Just for ConnectWise here, they call these agreements. Once we select our agreements here, get some information to populate. We can do short and long descriptions, custom pricing and costs. I have worked with several partners that pass across $0 line items. Maybe they're billing from some kind of bundle, a bronze, silver, gold package, something like that. But they do want to capture that quantity. And so they can push these across, as well as the effective dates. And so if you do need to, bill ahead or bill behind, you can pass across kind of custom effective dates here. And then there's that pro rata. So there's the partial month charge. And so we, it's only a couple of days into May here. We definitely want to capture that revenue rather than eat that cost. And so we're going to add that prorate on automatically. And then even then we do kind of one final checkout screen. So that's what we have, some very nice kind of review screens here before we push it across. And within that, spelling this out, very plain language. What are we doing? We're creating a new ConnectWise edition, a new, service inside of auto task is what we'd be talking about. But here, it's pushing to ConnectWise. It's something called our Business Basic, and of whatever description, we can see there it's on monthly. So that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted something for 5 licenses to repeat on a monthly basis there. All our financials and everything there will stay the same, so we don't have to worry too much about those. But then if I come down here, you can see that proration is also very much spelled out to us. And so we're creating another new edition, for our proration. So it's for our Business Basic, even, inputting those dates and things like that, just because I wasn't sure when I turned those on. So here, on the 5th, most of May's charges, and there you can see very clearly a one-time charge for 5 units. Calculated out at that kind of partial month. So, almost a full month, but not quite there, on these one-time charges here, kind of queuing it up. And then we just go ahead and confirm it. And so just pushing across that change, as simple as that, it just, does work that fast in the real world there, get kind of an itemized receipt. So, created that, recurring one for 5, and then created that one time for the pro rata, the proration there, inputting those dates.
Proration on its own, Phil, is going to be worth the price of admission here. When I ran an MSP business, cloud solutions weren't so prevalent, but where they were, hosted solutions, it was a pig to be able to do the pro rata. And as you said, we had spreadsheets and all sorts of things going on. So what Tom's just shown there, really, really powerful stuff.
I think it's more than that, Richard, not just the proration, but the back end part of it, so where Tom was giving us the demo for activation of license dates, in the future, so you can do the work now, but have the system activate them later. Probably the biggest thing that we hear back from MSPs where they've lost money, and Richard, tell me, hands up, did you not do this yourself? Which was, you had that customer come to you that maybe a member of their team was leaving, and there was a new member of the team coming to replace them. So you had the phone call, which was with them, maybe came in through the sales guy, which was, hey, can you switch this guy off because he's leaving the business this Friday? And Claire, call her that, is joining next Monday, right? And then you would ask the question, Last thing on a Friday, what do you want to do? You know, the guy that you're leaving out the door, what do you want to do with that license? Do you want to put it into a shared mailbox? Do you want to do? And like 90% of the time, what does the customer reply with, Richard? They reply with that, I don't know. Let me speak to somebody internally and come back to you, right? So you switch on the new license for Claire that's starting on Monday, and you forget to go back to the customer. And they're a really, really good customer, right? And so a month later, you discover that you're still billing for Dave who got put out the door. And it's that area of this tenant management that we clear up, because you can future activate it, you can put reminders in place, and more importantly, you know, if you're putting one person out the door and then someone is joining, you can just literally compare the licenses, move them. So I think proration is just one part of the pain that is the everyday business challenges of an MSP that we make look really, really easy as MSPs, which is, you know, phone them up, hey, you know, tech help desk have just sorted it all out. But there's a huge swan effect that's behind every business in terms of the help desk guys that are actually making stuff happen, right? What this does is make the work easy for the help desk agent, as Tom has just demonstrated, but as well as that, as we discussed at the head of this conversation, if you're sat in the sales and marketing chair and you're sat in the CEO's chair and things like margin and profit is really, really important to you, that there's money not disappearing, the whole platform helps you manage everything to make sure that no single bill isn't ripped or not ripped appropriately.
Great point. Great point. Tom, I know a question that MSPs are going to ask is, I love how this looks, the ease of being able to onboard new customers and set up new services, but I don't want all of my engineers, or I only want certain engineers to be able to do this and not others. What does the granularity look like? Is there a way to set certain users up to be able to do this and others not so much?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, RBAC is what I've had preached to me before, RBAC, role-based access control. And very much, yeah, not giving any more power to users that don't need it, and or limiting what you can do here in the platform. But not mutually exclusive to ourselves and our technicians here, Richard. We also have a fantastic self-service availability inside of our customers. And so that's what, you know, several MSPs do have kind of what we call a co-managed IT or a hybrid IT situation where they've got a very smart individual on staff, maybe even a small, you know, IT team on staff at that customer. You know, and so being able to offload some of that legwork onto them, again, maybe without empowering them to all the keys to everything there, but yeah, the ability to come in and order licenses, for example. So just, hey, you know, can I come in and have the ability to order a couple of mailboxes when I need to? You know, previously they have to call you, they have to put in a ticket. It's a game of tag and back and forth to get that done, you know, and or a broken process in some format. So being able to empower somebody to log in, yeah, has some very, very great effects, as well as managing what our own staff has access to. So yeah, within that, we've got what has, you know, our users inside of here. You can sort them by the custom roles here. And so if you would like to take a look at them, you can definitely masquerade as them. And so I can show you what that'll look like. Creating a user, very, very easy to do here. Come in, select which of these roles you would like. So right now we do have a couple of predefined roles, you know, similar to the powers and scope of what you would find inside of Microsoft. I think they did a really great job of, you know, bumping up the way they did their roles inside the Azure Active Directory. You know, so we took that queue with a couple of these ones here. First name, last name, whatever email we throw into there will be prompted for 2FA and MFA. And so that's what very much, you know, this is Microsoft. They adopted a, you know, 2FA, MFA scenario. We very much did as well. So ourselves and these customers are very secure. And very much if you're curious about the roles inside of our admin, you can head here. We've got kind of, you know, collection of relevant information. We've got our managed roles here on the far right side. You can come in here and take a peek specifically at the roles. And so you can see there us at the partner level, as well as these company levels. You know, there's some fantastic roles. And so there's a, you know, a partner admin, for example, you know, can access our API, can activate company users, can, you know, add, move, you know, and so on and so forth. And so there are a couple of different ones. And then I want to show you as well, just these, the self-service customers, I think are just a fantastic use case for this. And so, you know, to come into our individual company here, We're looking at our Bristol aquarium. These will all be set to no by default, so you don't have to come here and indicate it. But if you do choose to empower this, let's go ahead and turn on that self-service. And you can see here a separate question actually appeared. So order approval required. I very much call this the trust metric. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, they're up ordering licenses, doing whatever they're doing. When they click submit on that order button, do you want that order to go through, go ahead and be added to their invoice, spin it up via API, and really you guys have that trust relationship? They click, it goes, it works. Or do you want that order approval required? So setting this to yes, would pass an email to you guys, your management team. You can look at it, give it your rubber stamp of approval, and then as soon as you okay that, then that order is going to go through. So I think that's a great way to empower them without giving them too much leeway. But once you turn that on, you'll have an individual users tab up here. And so I'm managing very specifically for our Bristol aquarium the users inside of it. And again, I can come in here to the create user field. And select roles that are specific for the customers only. And so I think, yeah, the Slim app one here is a very fantastic one. So if I just go back to my my admin really quick, I do want to show you the permissions on this one, just because I think this is a great way to kind of build some build some trust and build some visibility into that. So all you're seeing there is the ability to create a support ticket, but then view. And so this is a read-only access into the Pax8 platform. Hey, they want to come in, keep an eye on their licensing kind of thing, or just be able to look at it for whatever reason, but they won't be able to do any damage in here. They won't be able to turn anything on, get themselves into trouble with the arrears-based billing or something like that, as one unfortunately can with some of these software products. So yeah, fantastic question there as far as the users of the platform. So not just for ourselves and our other technicians, but also for these self-service customers as well.
Brilliant. So powerful. Thanks for showing that, Tom. Phil, I want to turn to you. We're both, I've said this a couple of times, we've been in the industry a long time now. So we see what MSPs do well. We see what MSPs don't do so well. And one of the things I would say MSPs don't do so well is focus on upselling, focus on offering new services to clients. In fact, I speak to many MSPs who their clients go off and they will buy something from somewhere else, and they will say to the MSP, hey, look, we've got this on board now. And the MSP will say to them, oh, you could have bought that from us. And then the MSP will say, or the client will say to the MSP, we didn't realize you did that. So I think MSPs are can be very weak at upselling. It strikes me that this platform gives lots of opportunity to look and see, okay, how can we lower this cost of support for the client? How can we increase revenue? How can we put new services in front of a customer? Am I right, or am I thinking crazy thoughts here?
You're dead right as usual, Richard. And can I say to everybody that's listening as well, you're such an advocate for this as well, of making sure that MSPs are communicating all of what they do. And, for anybody listening right now, can I point you to the Tubblog website? It'd be really good for you to go there and have a look. Richard's got some blogs and stuff on how to put together a category list, and, stuff from broadband all the way through to telephony that maybe you're not communicating effectively some of the stuff that you're doing in your business. But here at Pax8, Richard, to answer your question, we make it really easy. It's what the industry calls gap analysis, or Amazon call it customers that bought this also bought this. And probably the easiest thing for me to do is get Tom to demo that for you right now, so you can see where the opportunity is through stacks to be able to see the product penetration across the 5 categories that we've got in our business. So over to you, Tom.
So Tom, I'm immediately looking at this and I'm getting super, super excited because Phil mentioned my blog. There's actually a blog post that I wrote years ago about MSPs putting something together that I call the solution selling matrix, where clients are down the left-hand side, and then on the top, you've got all the different solutions. I think you might have turned this into a digital format, but I'm going to zip it now and let you impress me.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better for what it is. It is multi-tenant across all of your customers. What am I currently selling you? What am I not selling you? Where is that gap? Very much the namesake. Where does that come in? To be able to take a look at it, so I can see here, email services and business apps. But maybe I don't have anything in the comms or MSP tools, or of course I've got IaaS, I've got an Azure in there. But what about their storage? What about their disaster recovery? And so even as far as security here being the big one. So really going through in here. seeing, who has managed security, who has, security assessments, identifying where that mobile security is maybe not coming into play. Do I need to implement an Intune kind of solution, or maybe even look into other vendors specific to that, and across all of these stacks. And so this is one way of doing it. And then as well, we did kind of bring in an enhanced feature of this multi-tenant looking into looking at their security posture as well. And so we do have a widget back at those home screens, the fancy executive dashboards here. And I believe it's going to be on my other panel here. We go to my Microsoft dashboard that I have. And this would be a part of one of our kind of advanced features within the platform, which is something known as Pax8 Pro that we can discuss a little bit more in depth if you'd like to. But one of these widgets that we have here is what's called the gap analysis. And right now, this is just specific to Microsoft. Stay tuned for some cool updates to that. But here I can see every single one of my companies listed out inside of here. And on the right side, I can see some security information about these. And so again, we talked about what that help desk technician is going to have on his home screen. It's this gap analysis widget. This is just fantastic for him to be able to click into, my chip Tesco here, in very clear language, very plain language. Get this loaded up here. Who has MFA? It's all of this list of users. Who doesn't have MFA? There shouldn't be any real humans down here. This should be, shared mailboxes or kind of, different things there. But every human should be, immediately apparent on that has MFA, doesn't have MFA screen. As well as a couple of the other ones. That's what I've got my default screen here. Let me set the Microsoft dashboard.
I think the bit that's key here, Richard, is you said at the head of this question, gap analysis or selling stuff is normally what MSPs are quite poor at. I think maybe we're too hard on them sometimes as well on that. But I do think, you're a big advocate of Bob Berg and his Go Giver books and a lot of the teaching that he's got. The easiest way to sell something, and come on, most of us aren't in sales really, are we? Or we don't, as MSPs, like to present ourselves as, suit-wearing salespeople. The easiest way to sell is actually to fix a problem. And, right now we know that particularly here in the UK during the pandemic, any listener right now, if they read the cybersecurity breaches survey that's been released for the last 6 years by the ONS, in 2020, 46% of businesses had a security breach. The average cost then was $3,200. So the number has gone down and up, though. By 2021, and again, just Google the report and see it for yourself, the number of breaches went down to 39%. So great to hear that the people watching this are doing their job to turn the needle. But the most concerning thing is the average cost has nearly trebled. The cost is now £8,460 per incident. And a lot of it, to Tom's point here, is how do we manage our tenant, right? Just switching on MFA, it's a simple thing to do. Just removing global admin rights, it's a simple thing to do, but how do you get a handle on your estate across all of the tenants that you've got? So this is the screen, and I'll let Tom finish, where you're looking at the key cyber issues around your tenants that you're managing. And here for Green Torch, right, only 33% of the organization have adopted MFA. Jonathan Coe, that's bad news right there, right? He needs to just get that switched on. And right there and then, there is an opportunity now for someone to pick up the phone to the customer and say, hey, we'd like to secure your business, and take them through the process, and maybe plug onto it a last pass sale or something of that nature at the same time. Tom, I'll leave you continue.
Yeah, and that, a fantastic upsell opportunity for training, for end user training. Hey, let's sit down with a team and teach them about this scary unknown thing called MFA and 2FA, because you guys really should have everybody on MFA, 2FA kind of stuff. And so that's where, they very much went after this, and to design, credit to our dev team for being able to push out such fantastic things here. But, we've identified things like active users. Have you signed in 30 days? Everybody's on a monthly model. If you haven't signed in 30 days and I'm still licensing you, that's just money down the drain. I think that, we could look into that, and especially with instant provisioning, being able to turn something on, turn it off within a couple of seconds. I don't have to keep that, that buffer pool of licenses that I used to, and things like that. So being able to take a look at those active users, the global admin there that Phil definitely touched on. Again, global admin without MFA, that's the scary stat right there. This would really be, 0 across the board there. But, and the last two I think are really important as well. So, going as far as taking a look at legacy authentication. And so things that aren't as secure. And so there's things that maybe, that as we get forward in time here are less and less secure. We've got our Exchange web services, older protocols, SMTP, POP, and IMAP, and things like that will show up in there. It's great to put that on your radar. And again, I don't have to be a wizard in technology to read that. I just have that available on my login screen. I just logged in and happened to notice that wasn't 0 for the legacy login. So that, who's coming in on not modern auth is a great way to read that. And then as well, these quality of life. And so again, not to harp on it, but we're human, we make mistakes. And so every time I take an employee out of the system, there's one critical thing that needs to be done, and take that license off their mailbox, convert that to a shared mailbox, and being able to see that, again, that's something that just gets caught up in kind of the madness of the day to day. It's not the most critically important step. But absolutely, real world. I've logged into this with several MSPs and found a lot of money left on the table here with these licensed shared mailboxes. This is a great way to come in here and instantly get that back in your pocket. Just turn it right off there and sort that stuff out. And then as well as keeping an eye on it going forward, just making sure nothing falls between those cracks there with it.
I love it. I'm going to go as far as to say I think this is a killer feature. I genuinely do. So MSPs, IT solution providers watching this, the whole tenet of managed services is to lower your cost of support and increase your revenue. If you can sell a tool into a client or even offer a tool into a client that reduces the number of tickets that they generate with you, you are going to increase your profit. If you can sell them that tool, you're going to increase your revenue at the same time here. So, for many, many years, Phil, I've been on my soapbox telling MSPs, hey, look, help your clients by putting the tools in front of them that are going to lower your cost of support, that are going to increase profit, that are going to increase the stability of your client. You've just turned it into a tool here that MSPs can access. So bravo, I think this is a killer feature.
Yeah, I think added to that as well, Richard, you're a huge advocate for the service review or the QBR, meet your customers on a regular basis. And a lot of the time, MSPs don't want to be selling. They want to be having conversations, right? And so just this dashboard alone is a conversation point to talk about security with the customers. It's not invasive. It's about keeping them safe. And I think these tools here that give the MSP a view on the customer's business that they're managing is a really far more effective way to have the conversation rather than, hey, last month we did X tickets and we cleared them down in 3 hours or whatever. I think the same as you in that this area of security and efficiency and effectiveness is what's going to drive the market going forward.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of features here today, Tom. Before I turn to Phil and we just sort of get sort of wrap this up, is there anything that I've not asked you about that you're dying to show me here about the platform?
There was, two quick things that I'd like to definitely, you kind of just mentioned it, the QBRs, that quarterly business review or that sit down, whether it happens once a month, once a quarter, even once a year, to sit down and take a look at kind of the state of the union, as it were, of their business. We have a fantastic tool for that known as the Microsoft Cloud Assessment Tool, called the MCAT here. And this is a one-time report that you run in here. And I think that you'll really like the information that we're able to put together, but then also, how it's presented to that end client as well. So I've got a couple of ones in here. They do only exist for 30 days before we self-delete them, just because we know it's a deep dive there. So we've got Nova School of Mines. Let's go ahead and view a report that we've run here. It takes about a minute or two to run these reports. But what you get is something like this. And so I'm going to see my total current cost, my total offer, and total monthly savings there, not just across the total, but also on that per active user metric that you see right there. And so I think this is a fantastic report because I'm getting great information about all of my Exchange Online Plan 1s. How many do I have assigned? How many are kind of left unassigned? Down here I can see, a couple of A5 for students, overpaying for licenses that I don't need. That's very, very apparent. This can be used as a prospecting tool potentially. You can input your own pricing in there. So whether you know what they're paying for it, or if you're just taking a guess, you can go ahead and throw it into there to compare some of those numbers. But where the magic really happens is that we also add that security component. So everything that we talked about with that gap analysis, we're going to go ahead and calculating those out. So there's that Microsoft security score, that gamification, more users with MFA equals more points, equals more, stuff and rebates with Microsoft. And it's a good practice to do. So, there's that security score. There's your users without MFA, forgive my demo account, should be, near 0. And then our inactive users, how many users haven't logged in 30 days, as well as a nice breakdown of every single individual user. So I can see here, my user Alex, they are enabled, they are active. They're consuming, 2 different licenses there. So there's their total spend. So I think this is a great way to maybe flag a certain department or sides of the business that are maybe consuming more or less Microsoft. And so that's where maybe you can target some of your focus. And then the way that this report is generated, I think it just looks really great as well. So you've seen a couple of different logos and branding and stuff. Our platform is white labelable. And so if you were to send this to an end user customer here, just going to kind of generate my PDF. They're going to see something like this. And so they're going to see your logo, their branding, the entire of the line or of the license finance report here, as well as that security report as well. So we'll go ahead and tack on that security report. What they don't see is Pax8. And so that's what we're more than happy to kind of remove ourselves from the equation, let you guys present this as your report, and be really, the rock stars in presenting it. So I just, love this report. I think this is fantastic for the business owner and decision maker who just doesn't care about the technology. We all know somebody like that where they're paying you to be handed a laptop that works. And when I open it, it better work and have the things that I want. We all know somebody like that. This is a great report to touch base with them, give them kind of the lay of the land of where their licenses goes. And they don't necessarily have to be a technology guru to really understand what they're looking at. So, very, very digestible as far as kind of the layman's terms is concerned.
And where this report helps, Richard, we know, Jay McBain and Forrester and post-pandemic, the businesses that now cannot, or the MSPs rather, that cannot help businesses grow are the ones that's going to struggle. Okay, so technology has historically been seen as a cost or an overhead. This side of the pandemic, technology is now seen as an investment and something to help a business do more, better, faster, and different, right? So the MSP has to pivot now from talking about break fix, and this is what we did to keep you up and running, and these are all the efficiencies, and these are how many tickets we did. I would say that anybody that's listening to or watching this video right now, if you're still having those kinds of conversations, you're not going to win going forward. And the reason you're not going to win going forward is MSPs that will be on the Pax8 platform will be having this report of where they can save the end user money, right? Because look at it, it's top line figures here. Like, who doesn't want to save £241 or dollars per month right now? But as well as that, for the person that's having the QBR right now, you've also got the detail. So, as Tom scrolls down and shows the screen, you can see that the email addresses to each user and everything are there. So you can see, well, hang on a second, like Bruce Wayne, Batman left our business quite some time ago, could switch that one off, right? Or, whatever it is that's going on. So not only are you giving the headline saving information to the customer to save their budget, you're actually able to pivot into the granularity of saying, hey, let's switch off MFA for this, switch on MFA for this one. Let's remove that license. Let's assign this one. Real practical help that then the customer of the MSP, when you walk out the door, has got that feel-good feeling of, wow, my IT provider saved me $2,000 just by coming into the office today over a 12-month period.
Incredibly powerful. Tom, this is very, very interesting indeed. You mentioned there was another area that you were excited to show me as well.
There is, and it's just it's more me tackling a clerical item day to day, and so that's what we've gotten the opportunity to step through something here, and really take our time, kind of clicking through a couple of these portals. Let me show you what it looks like from a day to day. So I just received an email from Bristol Aquarium. They need a license of business premium. Okay, let's go ahead and take care of that right now. So coming to find my right portal here for it, my YIT. So we'll find our Bristol Aquarium within our list of companies. There they are. I'll go into my active subscriptions. I can see those business basic that we turned on previously, but there's our business premium. I've got my subscription in place. I can track that back through time. I'm going to go ahead and modify. I'm going to add 1 seat of business premium, accept those terms and conditions, and submit. Right there, we've got our thank you for the order screen. API is going to work in the background as soon as possible. Let's go ahead and sync that over. Select our connection there. We've already done all of the work. We've already, even in the past, selected this agreement. It's found the existing one. We're going to update it. Everything looks great. It's captured that proration. We're going to update that current ConnectWise to 11, and then we're going to pass across that one time for the 1 unit of proration and confirm. And so that is the day-to-day process. That's truly how quickly it works. There's no forced coffee break where I'm sitting here waiting for the spinning wheel to finish spinning and things like that. Stepping through it can take a little bit, again, kind of setting up that stuff. But once you have that in place, the day-to-day management, I just provisioned and updated the billing for a single license there in about 30 seconds. And so truly a very, very quick process that I just wanted to show in its fullest glory there.
I'm really glad you did so. Phil, the one thing I've got to say about this, first of all, I'm shocked at how unfeasibly excited I am about a portal. I'm going to throw that out there, and MSPs, if you are watching this, I hope you share my excitement in it. There's been a lot of hubbub about Pax8 coming to the UK, coming to Europe. Hopefully this video shows you some of the reason why. It's much more than a distribution company. That's an old term for perhaps not applicable for what is going on here. The other thing I want to say, the other thing I am excited about, Phil, and I'm going to make you blush here a little bit, Tom, we often talk about, businesses are only as good as the people within it. It is clear with people like Tom Welton and others that you've got within the Pax8 business, you've got some incredible wingmen that can hold the hands, can, put their arm around MSPs and just help them get where they need to go.
And that's key, and listen, it's far better for Tom to speak than me about what it's like to be a wingmate here at Pax8. There's an army of them, so we haven't picked, one of our outstanding people here. There's a whole army of Tom Weltons and a whole truckload of wingmates all the time that are eager and willing to support every MSP's business. And that's fundamentally, as I said at the beginning, we're an awesome company because we have an awesome platform and we have awesome people. And fundamentally, I think back to John Street, our CEO, and his original vision came from a horrendously poor experience he had in the US in procuring office products, right? That's where this vision came from. And he and Klaus, one day when they exited MX Logic, say, hey, what should we do now? They say, hey, let's fix that problem. And here we are living out their vision and their reality all over the globe. Tom, would you be good enough maybe to talk about one thing as we close, which is what it's like to work at Pax8, but as well as that, cover the invoicing bit, but we actually cut the bill as well, even down to a PDF level. So Richard, some people are using tools like ConnectWise to run their bill and exporting. They can do that, but for smaller MSPs that maybe are on Synchro and they don't want to make those kind of investments, we will actually cut the bill for them. You can put your kind of white label PDF just like that report, and then you can batch import them into Xero or something else that you're using on the VAT side of things. So Tom, could you cover maybe those things as Richard takes over?
Absolutely, Tom. I'd be excited to see this because, as you say, Phil, there is a lot of smaller MSPs who want more functionality and want some help doing this. So perhaps you could show us through it, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have within our billing here, we've got it all nicely organized. And so that's what you'll be able to see payments made. We've got the invoices generated. So that's what I can give you a peek of what one of these would look like, I think. So with that, we've got our standard clerical information across the front, who it's billing to, who to pay us, and things like that. But what I do like is that we've broken up the names there, the customers by pages. And so quite literally, if you're still physically printing these out or need to partition these to different parts of your organization, you can see there's my, bills plumbing for my customer, as well as, line item descriptions. So, monthly quantity 1.0 of the total price. And then this will also include those prorations and things like that as well. So those parts per month charges will show up as nice itemized lines there for it. And then again, kind of page breaking so that now my new customer, Blue Spark Cloud, has an entirely separate one here. Very, very clean and tidy. Especially maybe for those smaller MSPs that aren't, quite up on those larger PSA tools that keep all those organized for us.
Very cool. And your official title is Partner Solutions Engineer, Tom. We've mentioned it a few times during the call, though, the idea that Pax8 have got wingmates that help people, to get on and to do things. What does your typical day look like within the Pax8 business? You're not normally speaking to Richard Tubb and doing demos of this nature. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Sure. So we assist as needed. So very much, you as an MSP, all those out there watching, you'll have a dedicated wingmate or wingwoman as well. So your account manager will be your go-to contact in person. And then, maybe you're having a conversation with that individual and all of a sudden we want to talk about some Acronis pricing or maybe talk about the way to implement some drop suite or something like that. And so, that's where you would engage myself and my team. We can hop on, drive you not through just a demonstration of how our platform works here, but how those vendor platform works. So, how they look, where to click, are they multi-tenant, what their, dashboards and landing pages look like on their side. But then very much, we're not just on that side of the equation, we're there on the other side of it as well. So kind of in that post-sale capacity, I'm so excited. I've just bought the security solution and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to turn it on. I'm worried that I might be over aggressive in its first deployment. How do I set up pilot groups and things like that, is very much where my team steps in. And so with that, very, very much, facing the MSP community in there, talking to you guys on a daily basis, about all manner of things, including our PSA tools and platforms and all of our products. And then as well internally, I think we've become, a nice source of information as well. They, all these buzzwords they throw around, subject matter expert, a SME has been the newest one as well. But very much if somebody's got a question about a product, it'll come down the line to my team and kind of the experts. And if we don't know the answer, then we go out and find it. And so that's what is very exciting about my job. No 2 days are the same because I get sent down a different rabbit hole every single day, chasing down a very obscure Microsoft question or a way to make this security component play nicely with my ecosystem. And so, I absolutely love the company. Have been with Pax8 since 2018. Out in Denver, Colorado is where our headquarters is. Very beautiful city, and place for our organization as well. So not setting up in these giant metropolises, but really looking at the quality of life for the employee. And that's what I'm not just saying that when Pax8 isn't a job, it's a career. It's a place for me to build a career, for me to always push myself forward. And the amount of things that I have learned, the empowerment from, certifications and things like that for them to chase and get me smarter, for me to be more effective at my job. I've never seen that with any other company. And so, truly consider myself lucky to be a part of the Pax8 team. And having a fantastic experience here, helping open up the European market as well.
That's brilliant, Tom. Now, Phil, as we come to the end of our time together here, it was January of 2021 when Pax8 officially landed in the UK and the European region. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, you had a waiting list as long as your arm of MSPs who wanted to join you as a partner. What is the state of play at the moment? If anybody watching this video wants to become a Pax8 partner, they want to get hold of this brilliant portal that you've got, what is the state of play? How can they go about that?
Yeah, so because we knew from conversations on Nigel Moore's Tech Tribe and lots of the stuff that you were sharing with me, Richard, we were well aware that there was pent-up demand here in the UK. So the way that we approached the kickoff with us here is how can we continue to have smiley faces in terms of net promoter score, right, as we scale up here in the UK. So we are already in excess of 70 people here in the UK right now. So Tom's team, Anthony's team on support, and then Aaron's team on sales and enablement. So, we're serious about the way that we go around delivering what it is we're doing. And we were really privileged to have over 500 partners sign up with us in the first quarter of 2021. So we are all set to cope with the growth and the demand that people have for us. So it'd be great if they visit the Tubblog website /Pax8. You've got a landing page there with lots of information and some of the launch briefings that are available on a monthly basis. People like Tom and other people are giving you a 90-minute speed chat through kind of a lot of what you've seen today. So that's a great place to go. And then as well as that, people can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and can get in touch with me, and I'll get a wingmate to hop on a call with you straight away and get you going. So the great news is we're no longer running a waiting list. So for Q1, as you know, we had capacity that the team that had come over from the US, Tom, Anthony, Wyatt, Matt Resch, others, there's a team, I think, of 11 Americans that had come across here to help kind of train the trainer. And we're so grateful for the work that they've done with us here. And Tom, I'm really grateful to you personally for the commitment that you've done to travel the globe, leave your family at home to come and do this. But it was to help MSPs in the UK get access to this product. So no more waiting lists, just jump on, and our wingmates are there willing and ready to help you improve your business and make more margin.
Incredible. And we'll include all of the details, all of the links, everything else that we talked about in the show notes and in the links and everything else in the details below this video. You will have made some fans with this video as well. So for anybody who wants to get in touch with Tom Welton, Wingmate, directly to continue the conversation, how can they reach out to you?
Perfect. So I've got a LinkedIn available. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, of course. And then as well, yeah, my Pax8 email. So Twelton, TWELTON, at pax8.com. So just Twelton and Pax8. Shoot me an email. Let me know what's going on. We can talk about it. I can put you in touch with an account manager if we need to. But yeah, let's go down that rabbit hole together. Let's learn something with it. So yeah, excited on a daily basis for sure.
Fantastic, Tom. Look, Tom, Phil, I'm so excited for both of you to see what Pax8 are building in the UK. There was such pent-up demand for your services, and it is, I think, for anybody watching this, it is clear to see why. You've got the people, you've got the processes, you've got the technology, to take this whole model to the next level. So kudos to that. Phil, I'll turn to you just as we close up the video here. What's coming next for Pax8 in the UK and for your team?
Yeah, so it's already happened, Richard. You know how strategic we are as a business in terms of what we're doing. So the most exciting thing has already happened as we came here to the UK, which is the acquisition of the Wirehive business. So back to what I was talking earlier on with taking the admin and the heavy lifting out of day-to-day MSP management business practice, right? That's going to free up a pile of time. So I was talking to a partner the other day that had 22 employees running their help desk. I said, well, we can take 2.2 of those headcount for you, and you can spin them up, because we have statistics proven that we're saving 10% of the workforce's time in what we're doing. So that's a huge bill. So where could you implement that change? So where you could implement it is by selling cloud consulting services on a white label basis. So there are lots of people post-pandemic now that have digitally enabled their business. So they will be customers that MSPs are serving right now that maybe have Salesforce CRM or HubSpot or Zoho CRM in the cloud in one part of their business. They might also have a website that might be built on things like Marketo and other solutions. And what they want to do is bring all of that to bear on their ecosystem with maybe Microsoft Teams that they're purchasing off you as an MSP. They maybe need some Azure licenses, and they want access to Microsoft BI to create some dashboards for that company, that company could see the number of hits to their website and the number of leads on Marketo that are driving all the way through their business, and at the same time linking into the CRM solution and then back down into Teams on managing every single sales inquiry that they've got in the business. MSPs can now, thanks to Pax8 and the Wirehive partnership, we can now unlock cloud consultancy for an MSP that you can go in and have the most complicated of conversations with companies like Vodafone or Raytheon, really, really complicated companies that you could go in and have that conversation, knowing that you've got Kevin and his team over at Wirehive being able to help you close that deal so that they'll do all the consulting, all the professional services, white label for you so you can cut the bill, and then more importantly, all the Azure licenses and all the Microsoft licenses that are required to deliver on it. Tom and his team can help tech spec all of that at the back end to help deliver a solution that you can add more professional services and more recurring revenue to your business. So exciting.
Brilliant, exciting times. Phil, Tom, thank you for your time today. This has been an absolute thrill for me. I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit of a techie geek. I'm a former MSP owner. I love this stuff, and it's clear to see both of your passion come through the screen as well for this as well. So thank you for your time today, and I wish Pax8 all the very best in the UK for the next 12 months and further beyond as well. So cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Richard.